Hi guys, word to the wise. Let me put this down, maybe get a little sunlight out of me. Interesting day. Interesting time we are living in. I haven't been in prayer really in a long time. I speak with Jesus on a regular basis daily, but to really wholeheartedly sit down and pray, it's been a while. I'd say, almost weeks, and I'm thankful because I just had a hernia surgery that was pretty extreme. I've got like a pretty good 5-inch scar on one side of my lower abdomen, below the belt even. I'm just getting over that, being able to kind of be fully mobile. I'm probably a good 80-85%, which is good. Healing amazingly. I'm surprised at how much pain it was for the first week to be where I am now. After 2.5 weeks, it's good. I've seen a lot of videos. A lot of things are going on. You see this digital world that is just taking off so fast. It's crazy. And for anybody who doesn't believe that the beast is being built up around us, right now, people can easily be kind of swayed, but what I notice is like it's the quietness, while things are happening in the background, things are moving, even in our faces, but like, what's happening with the poking of the bear in Ukraine, what's happening in the Middle East with Iran and Gaza. I saw a video from Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, and he was showing what the streets and what the area of Gaza looked like back in 2023, 2022 to 2021, and what those areas look like now, and it is just flattened. And to say that they're doing something to fight against their enemies, no way. Either they have no real system other than just throwing missiles and bombs at everything. And now you're seeing that, okay, so everything's gone. There's nobody hiding there. So what's up with all the people that are just trying to get food and water? And it's horrible. Definitely need to pray for those people. And can America ever look like something like that, from our enemies? I don't know if it's possible. Gaza's definitely not as big as America, but to say that one area couldn't, from some bad guy scenario, I don't know. It's horrible altogether. It makes the hair on the back of my neck almost stand up. But again, seeing the current sitting chief, is he doing everything that he said he was doing, or is he doing everything other than what he said he was going to do? Groceries, gas, is anything getting better? No. Just rolling down the same Biden train, Last night, I was alone. I went to a window. I got down on my knees, had to kind of brace myself to get down there that far. It's kind of tricky, but I could do it a lot easier than I could a week and a half ago. And in my job, normally that's what I would do during work, is I made videos for years. And the more and more I tried to do more for my work, the more I was falling away in my life from these videos. They're definitely much more sporadic, weeks at a time. And probably like 3, almost 4 years ago, I don't know how long it's been, honestly, but my boss, when I worked at this job, was just a tyrant. He was one of the worst people I've ever had to engage with on a regular basis. I'll say that hands down. And I remember, letting my wife know. I was like, it's so awful, and this and that. And then I was having all my requests for vacations being denied, and I was just like, I can't do anything. For the entire year, everything I've requested has been all denied. Weeks, couple of days, one day, everything denied. And I said, my wife said, get out of there. And I said, okay, that's my window. And I remember putting my time in, and then I would do my job, and I was doing it still to a T, and I prayed and I said, am I doing the right thing? Am I supposed to get out of here? Because leaving, I know that now I walk around and look at it and think of it differently. I work at a big mechanics shop, and it's a giant warehouse, but it's basically almost like the same thing. It's just a lot of mechanic tools and systems to just do. And by the end of it, the management and the owners said, no, we want to let him go and we want to keep you. And I was like, wow, that's, I was thinking I was going to get out of this place and go do something else. And I was almost happy. I had jobs, interviews all lined up, ready to go. And it's like, wow, this has just changed everything. And so I said, okay, finally. The owner pulled me in his office and said, stay, whatever it takes. And I said, okay, fine, done. I knew semi what the systems, and then it kind of made everybody in the factory kind of own up their roles, engineers and everybody kind of just really stepped in, and it just worked out so well. It was amazing. And then over the years, it's just gotten, it's just trying to keep up with everything. And I was working by myself, trying to run a factory and an office building and another building in another town 10 miles away was my responsibility. And like I said, I was doing this all by myself, and then they would hire somebody, and most people didn't last a week because they just were not fully capable of the job, or they were just, I'd rather do this by myself than try to train somebody to do this job. And the attitudes and incapabilities was just like, wow, this is too much. I can't do my office work and take care of the factory and teach somebody at the same time. It was just a lot. I could go on and on. But I prayed last night and I said, it's just so much, and I can't get management to help me. I asked for help, and they were just like, told me I don't need to micromanage you. I shouldn't be micromanaging you. It's like, I'm not looking for micromanagement. I'm looking for no management to be holding me up from doing what I'm trying to do. And then yesterday, they're remodeling and they're trying to get a factory from Mexico, and this guy, I'm trying to help him and guide him and kind of lay things out. And I said, you can't put that there. You can't do this. This needs to be here. And then the guy was in disagreement, and he smacks me on the back and says, then fine, you do it. And I was like pulling the pin. And I just was like, you unbelievable jerk. And I slapped him on the back and I said, nope, you do it. And I walked away. And then today, they pulled me that they said, we need to have a meeting and smooth this all out. And I said, I'm just looking for this, that, and the other thing. And they changed their mind and their tune and said, you know what, we're just going to let you go. And it's like, wow, I'm 46 years old. I've never been fired in my life from any job, restaurants, construction, anything. I've always left them. And it's like, wow, this is what it feels like. It's crazy. But at the same time, I was on my knees praying, like I said, like the oil fume environment, watching guys grinding aluminum cases and having all this debris flying up in the air. And there's certain sections where they're doing that, welding and and bonding with heat, with these glues and stuff, and just the fumes and the clouds. You could look through this doorway in this area of the factory with the high ceilings, and it was just a cloud. And whenever I would see, there's girls working there too, office people that would go on routes and stuff like that, and checking out the factory and making sure things are numbers and blah blah blah. And I would see pregnant women, and I was like, you should not be out here without a mask or something. Like, this is not an environment to have a baby in your belly, to be pregnant. And like that area, like, I wouldn't even go into. If somebody called me in there to go do something for more than a minute, I would say, hold on, let me go get a mask out of my office. It's the only good thing that happened during COVID. It was like, oh, look, now these guys are all wearing masks finally. This is great. But, trying to get machinery and all that, it just, the job was just weighing on me so heavy. And I could feel my whole demeanor was just getting so negative. And the employees were great, but dealing with the supervisors, managers, and all that, and it was just like, why are you guys so difficult? What I'm trying to do is just make sure that everything rolls smoothly, because you have to stay ahead. And they just wouldn't listen. And it's like, wow. And it's like, you've done this for so many years, and it's like ingrained in you. It's part of your lifestyle, and now it's not anymore. I'm fired. I'm without a job. And it's like, this just happened an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. And it's just like, wow. Like, I loved the area, the working in the woods. I loved having the videos, being out there. But like, now I don't need to go over there. I don't need to do anything. I don't have to worry. But that's what I was praying on, was, God, should I even be here? This environment is not healthy. It's counterproductive to what I'm trying to do. And I can't see myself staying here and making this my lifestyle choice of work, and thinking that, yeah, I'll retire from this place in a few years, or when I'm in my 60s, in 10, 20 years from now. Like, I don't want to be working there for 20 years. Like, this place is going to be, that they buy old machinery, and they're trying to be, as one of the managers, the CEO, is like, oh, we want to be the number one in the world in refurbished transmissions. And wow, like, you can't. Your machinery is older than most of the employees that work here. And you don't have mechanics working here. You have somebody that worked at a grocery store or a fast food place, and then you're like, okay, build a transmission. Here's the roadmap, like putting together IKEA furniture. But I prayed on that last night before I went to bed. I was exhausted, yawning at 11 o'clock at night. And the night before, I was up for almost 3 hours from 1 o'clock in the morning trying to fight to fall asleep. And because of the surgery, I can't really lay down and extend my body flat. So I've been sleeping on the couch. And even then, I got up and I went into bed and tried to lay down and fall asleep. It was uncomfortable, but I almost did. But I just kept, as I got into that twilight drifting, boom, I would wake up, and it's just like problem. And it's like, something's got to change. So I prayed on that last night, and here I am. I'm out. And I can only say, well, thank you, God. Your will be done. I asked you if I should be there, and through the world, they pushed me out. And it's like, wow. Now I can go find a job somewhere else. I'm hoping that I even put out resumes to certain places on Indeed just to say, just see if the option would fall in my lap. If somebody would call me, and it's like, look at where we're at. Okay, I was going to say, do I even have my cell phone? But carrying around 2 cell phones. If one cell phone's unhealthy, I had two walking around in my pockets. And during the surgery, I was using like a lunch bag just to throw my phones, my wallet, my keys, because trying to put that stuff in my pockets was weighing on my pants, which was weighing on my surgery scar. And it's like, wow, you won't believe it. This bag weighs almost like 3 pounds or more, and it's just stuff I put in my pocket every day. Not to mention a big leather belt, which probably caused the problem in the first place. I haven't even been able to put a belt on or button my pants. I wear suspenders now, just so I don't have to deal with buttoning my pants and having a belt digging into me like a saw blade. And the hardest part is I'm gonna have to tell my wife, she's away right now at family's house, and she's not coming back until tomorrow. And it's like, I'm gonna have to tell her, and I'm gonna get an earful, and at the same time, I have to let her know, like, this is something that just has to happen. This is the course of events that's going to bring us into another thing. I just bought this van, and it's like $500 a month, and it's like, gee, now what do I do? Part of me is, it's like I feel it in my stomach. I'm worried, I'm scared. I'm not gonna sit here and do like I see other people do and ask for money and PayPal me and Venmos or whatever like that. I'm in the hands of the Lord at the moment. And there's bigger problems going around the world, I got a bed and a place to lay my head and food on the table, so that's more than I heard 50% of the world has on a regular basis. I see a lot of people talking about the red heifer they just burned in Israel. And if you look at one of my last couple of videos, I believe that's what I pointed out was, yes, they probably want to have that red heifer ash so that they have it jarred up and ready to go for when the Antichrist person comes along, their Messiah they believe in coming along, has the clear water or the clean water to sprinkle on them to forgive them of their sins for everything they've done. Those who are in power, those who are in control of the area, the land, and whatever else in the world. Who knows how far their reach can go. But, they have this now, and they can say, well, when you come along, you can cleanse us of our sin and we're all good. Not Jesus, though. They're not looking for Jesus. That's the scary part, So we just wait. But it's Ezekiel 36. If you read the lower third portion of that, most Bibles are all broken up in titles and areas, so you'll see that. But they don't need a temple. They don't need to do it on the Mount of Olives. Anything they do that's wrong can be cleansed by the sprinkling of the water. And then when that person is revealed, they're looking at the valley of dry bones coming together and coming back to life. And that's the people coming into the land already. And then looking at, look, they just cleared the whole Gaza Strip. So rebuild, and we can fill this all up with apartments and better living conditions, and who knows who's going to be contracting that and be making billions, if not trillions of dollars to rebuild that area. Just invest now in that company because they're going to take off. And then looking at the next chapter, 38, Ezekiel 38, Magog and Gog, which I believe is Revelation 20 happening. But so many people think that's happening soon, and I don't think that's going to be happening either. And then I think 39 has a little bit more about all the dead bodies laying everywhere, needing to be cleaned up. Don't touch them. You know, the birds will feast on them or something like that. I don't know exactly what it says. I don't want to misquote anything, and I'm sorry. And then I think by 40, it's talking about Ezekiel's temple, his vision of the temple. I went out and I treated myself to a sandwich. It was all right. It wasn't really what I was looking for. I should have gone somewhere else, but it is what it is, you know. I'm going to take it and eat it, and we'll see. Just want to stay faithful, hopeful, unafraid. I trust in the Lord. You know, and I was partly to blame, yes, for my exodus of my last job, and that's fine. You know, I'll own it. But I wasn't happy doing what I was doing, and to say, like I said, to think that that's what I'm going to be doing for my career. I don't want to do this for my career. This is the oily floors, oil-covered floors, stepping in grease and oil, like the shoes. I tried to get my shoes out of my office. They wouldn't even let me get those. Like, no, we'll pack them up for you. I was like, all right, you guys can't even just give me my shoes so I can swap them before I get in my car. Like, we'll call the police if you don't get out of here. That's how bad this guy that was my manager, and how much we couldn't communicate. And he showed me his true side of his childish nature. And it's like, wow, like you'd rather burn somebody down than forgive or have any kind of compassion or anything like that. It's like, I'm not being a jerk. I'm just asking for my shoes. And I tried to say, I'm like, hey, not for nothing, you know, the reason that this happened was you. I was trying to communicate with you and you wouldn't communicate with me. Like, why not? What was the problem? I shouldn't have to micromanage you. I've never done that for anybody. I'm like, well, how many jobs have you had where you've had to do this? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm thankful, and I'm going to make the most of it. So, just a word to the wise guys. I will try to use my time, if I have it, to communicate more with what I see going on, and I'll always try to tie it in with Scripture. I'm not going to sit here and fortune cookie anything. And amen. God bless you guys. Like I said, I know the beliefs over in the areas around the world aren't aligned with our beliefs, but man, nobody should have to really suffer in any way in this world. You know, that's the patience of Jesus, the long suffering is so that nobody should have to perish and that everybody should be saved, as in 2 Peter chapter 3. Hopeful for people to come and realize. Word to the wise guys. God bless.